Get real clear on your podcast, besides delivering amazing content or why would people listen, get real clear on your metrics. Who are you speaking to? Like, that's part of the training. You got to be very specific and not try to spray, but be very niched in who you're speaking to. Who's your message touching?
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
What's up, podcaster? It's your host, Adam A. Adams. This is the podcast on podcasting where we try to help you become a better podcaster. So Chris Prefontaine is somebody that was actually on my last podcast. If you remember, I sold my real estate podcast like 2.5 years ago from the day we're recording now. And well before that, Chris, I think, came on twice on that show. And I think even his son-in-law, they've got a business where they help people invest in real estate, and it's called Smart Real Estate Coach. So that's the podcast. The link's already in the show notes, and we're going to get started learning a little bit about Chris's journey and seeing what he has to pour in for you. Chris, good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Looking forward to chatting.
So you've done like well over 300 episodes. You have a ton of traction, like 300 plus ratings and reviews. It's a lot. It's a crazy amount. Especially in real estate space, it's hard to, there's only a few podcasts that are getting that kind of traction. So it's going to be exciting to have you on. But one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is you've got a coaching business and you've got a podcast. And I want to understand, how does the podcast feed into the coaching business, or is it just a passion project for you?
Yeah, good question. It definitely was not a passion project for me, meaning I was on a show, Mitch Stevens, I think, way back, 2016-ish.
Rand, I just interviewed him a couple of days ago.
Really?
It's kind of funny.
That's funny. Yeah. Small world. I haven't talked to him in a long time live. Mutual friend connected us. But he said at the end of the show, off air, he said, "Do you have your own show?" I said, "No." He goes, "Oh, you got to have your own show. It's going to help you business." So he connected me with someone, and we've been great friends since, and him. So no, it wasn't a passion. It was, I understood after they educated me how it could help the business. And when I say help the business, it's like, I visualize this when you asked it. Tentacles coming in the biz, right? All different ways of sort of being the authority. Did a book in 17, the podcast, just different ways of becoming, and public-wise, being the authority in your space. If that makes sense. That's really what drove it. And now it obviously has a life of its own.
So, honest question, you don't have to say podcast. You can say whatever's true. Curious if the book did more for the business or if the podcast did more for the business, since you did both.
Yeah, I should know this metric. It brings in different things. So in other words, if someone listens to the podcast, they may grab the book. Like we might give the book away today, right? For example, or they read the book and they're looking for more stamp of approval or credibility or social proof, and they go to the podcast. I got to say they're probably the same. The podcast, however, is more out there in their face, whereas the book they got to get. Even if I give it free, they got to get it, right? So the podcast probably, if I picked one, would be more broad, more out there, more in your face, and kind of starting to grow organically.
Yeah. And so have you seen your business grow since you launched your podcast?
Yeah, the business has grown, that and other reasons. The business has grown every year, 25 to 100%. We hit Inc. 5000 for the second year in a row. Just got notified.
That's awesome.
Yesterday for the last year's results.
That's really cool, man. Congrats. And Thanks. You think the podcast has something to do with that?
It helps a boatload. It helps from a credibility standpoint and authority standpoint. But Adam, also, as you know, like the relationships, like people like you and Mitch, we just mentioned, I've done JVs with Mitch since meeting him 6, 7 years ago, whatever it was. JV partnerships, all kinds of cool things. Some of the biggest revenue boosters have 100% been because I met him on my podcast and/or we did a show swap, and then we developed business together. It happened today. It happens every week.
So first and foremost, I will say, can you define JV? You said you've done some JVs with some people that you've met through the podcast, and I'll probably have a couple other questions after.
Yeah, I think the best way, just like when people ask me about deals, the best way is to give you examples. So today, I had an interview at 11 o'clock. Gentlemen, I got to know him a little bit like you and I did when we first met on the show. And I said, you know what, Eric, you're in the mindset space. We are looking for someone right now to help our Wicked Smart community in the mindset space. Do you have a program? Yeah, I have a coaching program. So now we already have an affiliate arrangement. That's what I refer to as the joint venture, the JV partnership, whereby he'll offer his course to our community after I vet it and make sure it's what we need to fill the mindset gap. And voila, we have a relationship that could go on for years and years. I have a relationship with an attorney, for example, on my show, who last year, I think we did close to $1 million together. It was from a show, from a podcast. So it opens up huge doors. And everybody I talk to, and I'm sure you agree, I guess want your opinion on this, says the same thing. Yeah, I meet unbelievable business rev gen people on my show.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you mentioned interview swap. Okay, so JV means joint venture. Yep. I just wanted to make sure that the listener knows. You've been doing interview swaps. And, it's funny because I was just recording an episode pouring out to our listener, the podcasters that listen to the show. I'm like, you got to be doing interview swaps. And you mentioned a whole bunch of good things that have happened from that. Some of them are you're in front of their audience. You can do your free book giveaway, and that might bring a couple of people into your world as well. If somebody's listening and they are thinking, man, I really should do an interview swap. Is this a ready, aim, fire or a ready, fire, aim? Is there something they need to be prepared for before getting all that exposure on other people's shows?
I think from two fronts, yes. Two fronts would be no priority order. One, make sure you get trained. For example, I was brand new. I was, nervous to even go on a show, but once I got some training on how to be a proper host and how to be a proper guest, there's etiquette, then I was super comfortable and have been. So one is get some training, right? Your show is the start of that, I would think, for them. And then as far as prepping, I personally like having appointment agents that schedule these interviews. So I'm talking, we call them incoming and outgoing. Incoming is they're on my show. Outgoing, today I'm on your show. And so I'd like to have people that have a track record, that have good outreach to book our shows. It's how you and I met. I'm sure we did. And so I've got 3 different agents that get us on shows and get us shows.
Do you mind going into that a little bit? Because I know that costs money when you work with the agencies like that. Yeah. And you've decided to work with 3 of them. So I really like to just understand, how much does it cost? Why do you pay it? Is it worth it? Because I think that the listener might hear the price after you say it and be thinking to themselves, I don't have that kind of money, but I want to hear your thoughts if we should be doing that or not.
Sure. When I first started, I started with someone I just recalled, and I'm going to start with them this Thursday, and I'll give you some numbers. So back then it was about $325 per interview they booked. And I believe that was incoming and outgoing. Then we made a big mistake last year. We were building some really cool momentum, probably got a little too cocky. And we said, we'll just do our own booking. One of our team members is super proficient at it, but couldn't handle the load. So last summer, about a little more than a year ago, we kind of took it in-house and forgot about the agents. Biggest mistake I ever made. And before I knew it, I was on like one show a week and opposed to like 8 or 6 or 5. And so business suffered from it. Now, luckily we had other tentacles that I called them earlier, but it suffered. So go back to the question, about 3.25. I have another booking agent right now that I just paid it, renewed it. I think his average is, you got to pay like 20 at a time, but he averages like similar 280 to 380 per interview. But we give him criteria, right, Adam? So we say, I want to be on a show that has this many episodes already now, or, we can get pickier. Not too picky, but just give some parameters. And then one of the agents I use now that I really love is actually the most expensive. They give me $6 a month that I'm on other shows, right? And then that's $3,000. That's $500 an episode. So we're probably paying, if you average it out, because some take longer than a month, you were probably paying $4 or $5 a month now. But when I first started, it was, $3.25 an interview and get me on one show a week type thing.
Yeah.
Or get one guest a week on my show.
Some of the podcasters are probably thinking like they're pretty new into it, and like $4,000 or $5,000 every month.
Right away. Yeah.
No. Okay.
No, not necessarily right away. Get real clear. Here's the thing though. Get real clear on your podcast, besides delivering amazing content, or why would people listen? Get real clear on your metrics. Who are you speaking to? Like, that's part of the training. You got to be very specific and not try to spray, but be very niched in who you're speaking to. Who's your message touching? You are with your show. So case in point. So get very specific and then track it. I know how many books come in every week for requests, and I know how much it costs us, $20.15, I think it is, to mail the package. And I know how many of those it takes to convert to a sale of anywhere between 5 and 100,000. Okay. So now it's just scale it.
Yeah.
But don't do it right away. You got to get the metrics going. That's all.
That's really cool. And so you have a package that costs $100,000 for one client?
We have packages that go from 100 all the way down to 5, and someone enters our community with a course that's like, $9,000 or $1,500.
So a quick question. Let's just say the listener's thinking 100,000 is a lot. Like I don't know if I could charge that much. I'm not worth that. I'm afraid to charge that. What if people think that I'm ripping them off? What would you say to somebody to kind of just open and expand their mind to like being able to charge a little higher premium?
First of all, what you said is exactly true. It's the imposter syndrome. I can't do that. It's not for me, whatever. First of all, start with a base. Do what we did. I can only tell you what I did, right? Because I can't hypothesize. Start with a base product that delivers amazing content. That's what we did. We had 10 videos shot on a flip camera that was awful focused, but it worked and people did deals from it. And then I said, okay, what are the average deals being done? Average profit on deals, as you know from past episodes we've chatted, 50 to 250 grand. Well, if you can do one deal, once you understand, it takes time, and you can get that much profit, I therefore should create some programs to support that, help them do more, and then put a value to that. Now, I'll tell you, my most expensive thing ever was, I think I started at $4,000, and then we created a program that was 6, and then 15, and then 25, and so on and so forth. So the demand kept going up, and we only can do so much, and the results per deal kept going up. So all that to answer your question, to say, find a base product, understand its effectiveness, and if it's not effective, get it effective and profitable for your client. Then chat with someone I'm going back to the mentor thing again. It's not me, but chat with a coach who coaches coaches.
I like that.
There, right? That's all. That's what we did.
Cool. Love it. So that's one of the things that you wanted to pour into the listener today. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll talk about that, some of the problems you might have come across while doing podcasting, and some of the things that you've learned. So we'll be right back.
Hey, my friend, as you know, this episode is sponsored by my company, growyourshow.com. We want you to be able to have the best tools at your disposal without costing you a whole arm and a leg. So right now you can get a free list of vetted equipment that like mics, mixers, webcams, sound treatment, editing software, everything that you need. I created the whole PDF with direct purchase links just to save you time and money, to help it be more convenient for you. So this free PDF will help you skip all the guesswork. If it's on there, it's vetted and approved by yours truly. And if it's not on there, it's probably not worth the money. So go ahead and get yours at growyourshow.com/PDF. Let's get back into the show.
We are with Chris Prefontaine, the Smart Real Estate Coach from Smart Real Estate Coach, the podcast. And before we get into the stuff you want to pour into the listener, another podcaster, I'm just curious, are you in Boston, or where did you get Wicked Smart?
We're in that area. Yeah, I grew up in Massachusetts. I'm in Rhode Island right now, but that's
cool.
We're close to Boston. That's where we got it. We trademarked it. The company name is Wicked Smart now, the whole bit.
Oh, that's so cool. That's really cool. So when I was in Boston one of the times, I bought a shot glass. I don't know what my deal is, but my mother, her thing was she buys a shot glass whenever she travels somewhere. And I started to do that. And then I was using the shot glasses like every night. And so I said, I need to find a different thing. So I started buying baseball caps when I go and visit somewhere. Cool. A little healthier. But I do have a shot glass that says Wicked Smart on it.
Oh, it's perfect.
And definitely used that a few times. I think I got it at the airport in Boston or something. But one of the things that you mentioned was knowing who you're speaking to, knowing your avatar, understanding that person. Would you mind telling us a little bit about how do we figure that out? How does that help us? And then we'll get into some of your feedback directly to a podcaster.
Yeah, my opinion, there's different ways of people teach this. But in my opinion, you want to get a little emotional on this, meaning go a little deeper with why you want to do what you want to do and who you want to speak with. Might stem from, you past, something happened. What in my case, the 2008 crash beat me up. So I want to help people not do that. So get real clear on that. and then start to see where those people that you're passionate about helping or delivering content to, where do they camp out? Like, what are they reading? What are they listening to? They listen to this podcast. So get real clear on that, so that when you're on your show, whether you're interviewing a guest or whether you're doing what I call a solo cast, where I just do my own show, you're speaking directly to them and they'll know it. Versus people think, this is real estate too, people think they got to like spray broad and try to hit everyone. Not the case at all.
So how there's a FOMO, fear of missing out, with trying to address everyone.
Yeah.
I think we get afraid that if we don't go for everybody and do broad stuff, then we might miss someone. And we feel like we're going to get a better result by just trying to be everything to everybody. How do we go against that? Like, how do we fix our brain and focus on one person?
I wish I had a more technical answer, but I'm going to say, listen to people like you and other experienced people that tell you that that's the wrong route, and I hate to make it so simple, but it is what we all do, real estate included. So instead, I promise you, trust the path of, say, myself and Adam, in that when you niche down, it screams right out, reaches that person, brings them right back in. It's an arrow, a nice focused arrow right to that person, if you want to visualize that. Versus you're just trying to be so broad, you're not really touching anyone at that level, especially emotionally. When I said emotionally, like, I know the person trying to escape their W-2 right now wants what we have. I know that for a fact because we look at history. I know that people who want a family business or grew up in one or witnessed one or would love to see one, they are attracted. I know. So when I'm on my show, I know who to interview, what to ask them, so I could help that person and reach out, literally grab them by the shirt and invite them in.
I love how you say, you know who's listening, you know who you want to be listening, and that helps you ask specific questions to your guests so that you're supporting your avatar. I like that. 100%. Okay, 3 things. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Drum roll, please. What's the best advice you have for a podcaster?
I'm going to go back to the mentoring. The path's been laid already by other people. Get this, stay with this podcast, stay with you, and get the proper coaching. You'll have a good experience. You can't not.
Okay. Mentor. How do we find a mentor then?
Again, probably podcasts like yours, YouTube. There's just so much stuff public now that's free.
Okay.
Go find someone with experience. And by the way, not, a year of doing a show. I'm talking about people like yourself that have been at it and understand it, and then they can learn from that.
Perfect. Question number 2. That's a drum roll. It's a really good one. All right. Biggest mistake you've ever made, Chris, on your podcast, not in real estate. Maybe that would be interesting too. Biggest mistake on your podcast.
The biggest mistake is when I shut down my booking agents, which shut down the flow, which shut down lead gen, which cramped some revenue. That was definitely the biggest mistake.
How about biggest mistake in real estate? I think that there's a lot of people listening that they might be scared of real estate. Yeah. I'm curious, what was the biggest mistake you've made?
Well, let me just preface this with, because of the time we're in right now, the creative real estate niche compared to what you're hearing the media yell about conventional real estate and real estate in general is in enormous demand right now because of the market. And so I don't want anyone to be scared of the market. They should bring opportunity to. That's just a side note. Don't listen to the news. Biggest mistake in real estate was pre-08, buying things conventionally, signing personally on loans, and using my own money.
Yeah.
There's no reason to do that. And so I sleep better now, 13 years later, that we changed the model. And again, haven't been so excited, I don't think, since we launched than what the market's doing right now. Perfect.
So my ears perked up. I'm sure the listener was like, wait, what did he say? With other people's money? So do you mind just sharing real quick, since this is what you do for a living, is help people do that? How do we do that? How do we buy something with
we buy everything
money?
I'm going to keep it very the basic too, is lease purchase and owner financing. Neither of those you're going to sign personally on. Neither of those you're going to put up money, and neither of those you're going to take out bank debt ever. Unless it's your personal house, I'll tell you, listeners. So take my real estate coach hat off for a minute, just as some free advice. Don't sign personally with a bank. There's no reason to do it unless you have to have a house for your family and you can't find it anywhere else but this neighborhood. But other than that, you can learn how to buy properties without your money and without using your credit. So whether you have credit or not, because I had none, you can do that. Do it all day long, every day.
All right, Chris, give away your book. And I have my third and final question for you.
Sure. So just go to wickedsmartbooks.com/Adam. And that's not one of those bogus offers where they say, get my free book, and you put your credit card in for $12 in shipping. This is free. I even gave you the cost when I was telling you about the funnel. It cost me a little over $20. You're going to get 2 books, hardcover, Amazon bestsellers, and there might be a little gift or two in there with those.
So I want to say it again, and this will be in the show notes. Is it wickedsmartbooks.com/Adam?
Yes.
Okay. Done and done. Last question, sir. If you had to do it all over, is there anything you would have changed? You're 300 plus episodes in. What would you do differently if you got to start over?
Probably two things. The training a little bit earlier. In other words, I jumped on interviews before getting any training. Sure, the experience helps, but the training will help along with the experience. That's one. And two is probably would have hired an agent day one, like literally day one. I think we, again, tried to muscle that for like 3 or 4 months ourselves and said, this stinks. It's not what I thought doing a podcast was. So yeah, those two things. It all goes back to training. I know I said it and it's like a broken record, but seek out someone that can just show you the path that like success leaves trails.
Love it. Chris, thank you for jumping on. The book link will be in the show notes. The link to Chris's podcast is in the show notes and his company. And hopefully you learned something great. We had a really good conversation today. Appreciate you, Chris.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
If you're glad that you checked out the podcast today, if you got some value out of this episode, some actionable takeaways, I invite you to do one of 3 things. A, you could do a written review on Apple. Let us know what you think. Just an honest written review. B, you could share the podcast with a friend of yours who needs it. Or C, at the very least, implement what you've learned to take your business and your podcast to the next level. And I'll see you on the next episode.